Hello folks, Jungle Jim here. Just so you know, I'll be your host today on this, my first video. Haven't never done this before, so I'm a little raw, I'm a little rough, but I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you the easy way to adjust your hydraulic valve lash. I'm doing it on this 350 Chevrolet on a run stand for purpose of illustration, and intake in this instance is off. You do not have to have your intake off to perform this operation. I've taken the liberty of rotating my engine so that it is on top dead center compression stroke. In that position, the camshaft lobes are pointed downward and away from the valve lifters, and your lifters are riding on the round heel of the cam. That's where you need to make your adjustment. As you turn the engine over, obviously the lobes will come around and lift the lifter, which will in turn push the rocker arm, lever it, and open the valve. What we're doing right now for simplicity is just adjusting the valve lash through the firing order. This, to me, is the simplest way for those who haven't done it, and I'll try to make it easy for you to understand. So we're on compression on the number one cylinder, so in this case you have 5/8. That's what your rocker nuts are. If you have a solid lifter cam, do not use this method. They require a certain amount of lash recommended by the manufacturer, and we're just doing a hydraulic. So you see where this is loose and wiggly, right? So you get the push rod between your little fingers there, and you give it a twirl. You can see that it's loose and everything, and you begin rotating that nut just until you feel the push rod get a little bit of drag. It gets a little tighter to turn. You'll still get a little movement out of it, but when you rotate it, you can tell that the up and down is pretty well taken up. I like to go 1/4 turn, so we start here at right angle to the intake, and there's your 1/4 turn. So your number one exhaust now is adjusted. Another thing you want to do as you're doing this, if your socket slides down on the nut, the socket itself will take up the lash, and then when you pull it off, you've got this again. So just make sure that you're not pushing the rocker arm down artificially with the socket. I put it on there and then I raise it just enough to get it off the ball, and as long as you keep tension on it, it'll stay there. So I go till I get that drag right there, and it just happens I'm at 90 again. We go that 1/4 turn. Doesn't have to be exactly down to the minute and second, just that's close enough. Okay, we've done number one. The next in firing order rotation on this particular engine, and most, if not all, Chevy V8s, is cylinder 8. Since I'm not using a ratchet, I can't exactly get straight up and down, so we'll just go a little past perpendicular, right about there. You go 1/4 turn. The way your crankshaft's made, each one of these throws is a 1/4 turn from the one in front of it or behind it, as the case may be, except for these are called your bicycles because they're 180 off, but this one and this are 180, this and this is 180, but you got a 90 here, 90 here. So that's your 1/4 turn. In your V configuration, you mostly will swap sides, not always. There's 2 times in the sequence where your adjacent cylinders will fire consecutively, and that's what gives a V8 the classic rumble that you hear, is those consecutive firings. So we're going to do number 8, so I'll shut up and get to it. There's the drag right there. Do a quarter turn. That one's adjusted. There's the drag right there. So we'll go up here, quarter turn. Now, we're going to go another quarter turn here. We're kind of like doing this whole rule of quarters, I guess. It just happens that way. I'll show you something cool here in just a minute. See, we're starting to open the number 1 exhaust now because I'm 180 degrees from where I started on this cylinder. Okay, your next in rotation is 4. This is your even side, this is your odd side. This is where your consecutive firing cylinders comes into play on this engine. 1, 8, 4. So you see you get 8 and then 4. Then you go 3, 6, 5, 7. When your 5, 7 occurs, then you get 2 over here. So for every 2 rotations of the engine, you get 2 consecutive firing cylinders on the same side. When the engine's running, if you got dual exhaust, you're like boom, 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 boom. It's trading sides. That's because of the consecutively firing cylinders on the same side. Getting close, not there yet. There it is. There's our quarter. Let me switch hands. If I can do this without tripping over the header. That's it right there. We go a quarter, and now 4 is done. So we've done 1, 8, 4. 3 is next. Now you have companion cylinders in here, so you'll always know if you're watching your rocker arms when you're on top dead center at number 1, because your companion cylinder, which is number 6, will be between lift and intake and exhaust. So let's see, we're fixing to do, what we do, 4, 3, okay, we're fixing to do 3, 1, 4, 3. Okay, 3 and 2 are companions. Right. So, if you want to know if you're at top dead center on number 3, you watch your number 2s. This one is up on the exhaust lobe. I've got the spark plugs in this thing, so it makes it a little difficult to... There, you see it's going down. The exhaust is going down. When it goes all the way down, you'll notice that your intake is beginning to rise. This is called the overlap. So when one valve's closing, the other one's beginning to open. Okay, so as long as you're in overlap on 2, you'll be at top dead center on 3 on compression stroke. There's companions for every cylinder. And this V8, the companions are 1 and 6, 2 and 3, 8 and 7. Is it 8 and 7? No. It'd be 8 and 7. They're on the same pin. Shit, I don't know. I mean, I know, but talking too much. This one I went a little too far. Okay, here we go. You ain't got the drag. That one's ready. I can watch the nut go down on this one, so we're not going to bother the push rod till I get close. Okay, let's back that up so I get it right where I want it. That's it. Go our quarter turn. Now 3 is done. Okay. So your companion cylinders, to explain this, are 360 degrees apart in crankshaft degrees. Because your cam turns at half speed, they would be 180 in camshaft degrees, which is how this is going to work. Well, they all work that way. So basically, your companion cylinders, if you've got the heads off, you're turning the motor, you'll always notice as you turn it, 1 and 6 go up and down at the same time. And I believe 1, 8, 4, 3, 6. 1, 8, 6, 5. Okay, 8 and 5. 8 and 5 go up and down at the same time. But anyway, every one of them's got a companion. You can, if you got your firing order, you do your first 4, 1, 8, 4, 3, and below it put 6, 5, 7, 2, and whichever ones fall below the first row are your they're all companions. So you 1, 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, 2. So you got 1 and 6, 8 and 5, 4 and 7, and 3 and 2. Okay, what are we doing here? 3, 1, 8, 4, 3, 6. I'm going to do 6. 6 is my companion with 1. 1's on exhaust. You see the rocker arm's pushing down. We'll watch that. See how it's going up. Now it's closing. Right. We turn it up. Okay, intake's just beginning to open. Can't tell it probably in the video, but I'm watching the lifter go up. That means we're on compression on number 6. So, if you're not tired of this crap yet, obviously this is going to be much more difficult in the car because you're going to have all kinds of crap around the engine. Air conditioning, compressor, whatever other accessories, the hoses, everything that's on top of the engine. And probably if you go to remove the valve covers, there's a lot of stuff you're going to have to take off to get there. But if you can see it illustrated plainly, maybe you won't feel overwhelmed with the task. 6. Now 5. 8, 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, 2. I'm going to go quarter. 4, 3, 6, 5. So 1, 3, 5. Ready to do 5. These nuts are, these rocker nuts are pinched at the top so they're narrow. That keeps them from unscrewing themselves when the engine's running. There's our quarter turn. So that makes them a little bit hard to turn while you're doing the adjustments. If you notice that they're really easy to turn, you probably should replace the nut because they do wear out if you've used them a lot. But there's also poly locks you can use. A lot of people like them. I like them. This motor didn't come with them. I didn't feel like buying them, so they're not on there. This engine has poly locks in it. It's got a Howard's hydraulic roller. It's a very nice engine. 5, 7. Okay. Okay, I'm watching my rockers here. My companion 4 and 7 are companions. Some of your engines will offer you a camshaft with a 4/7 swap. What that means is they've ground the lobes on the camshaft so that they alter the firing order. And 4/7 swap means exactly that. Where 4 was normally in your firing order before, 7 now is. Since they're companion cylinders, you're not altering the crankshaft, because these pistons are already moving up and down in unison. You're just changing your combustion timing by 360 crankshaft degrees. They say it makes more power. Depends on probably the intake and exhaust system. When you start getting into flow dynamics, there's a lot of air motion that needs to be considered. 7, we got 2, that's the end of that. But when air is in motion and you interrupt it somehow, then you have interrupted air motion. If it doesn't flow smoothly, you won't get as much air in there, and you must get air in to get power out. But what about fuel? Well, fuel comes in with the air unless you got direct injection. This engine's carbureted, so it's got what they call a wet manifold. Just basically means the fuel goes in at the same time the air does. It is not port injected. Could be, but it isn't. If it's port injected, then the majority of your air moves through the intake manifold without any fuel in it. Fuel is injected here. Or in the case of direct injection, all the way through the head into the cylinder after all the air intake is done. Okay, we got it done now. This engine is now set for the proper operating valve lash. I'm going to bring this timing pointer here around to 10 degrees so I can set my distributor, but that's another video. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something.